She was handcuffed, her heart pounding, and yet the officer's eyes didn't show a hint of hesitation. Minutes ago, she had been taken in for a routine check, but the world she knew dissolved in an instant. They forced her toward the swimming pool, her protests ignored, her dignity stripped away in front of witnesses. Time slowed as the cold water engulfed her, leaving her gasping, terrified, humiliated. How could those sworn to protect and serve act with such brutality? And even worse, what invisible lines of injustice had she unknowingly crossed? What she didn't yet know was that the very system enabling this nightmare was about to flip the script, and that the officers themselves would soon face consequences. Watch until the end to see justice unfold. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Maria Thompson had always been careful. A devoted nurse in her city hospital, she spent her days tending to the sick, often putting herself at risk to care for others. Her life followed a predictable rhythm: early mornings, long shifts, quiet nights at home. Her colleagues admired her dedication. Her neighbors knew her as polite and composed, a woman who always smiled despite the world's harshness. On the surface, life was ordinary, even peaceful. That evening, she decided to take a short walk around her neighborhood to unwind after an exhausting shift. The streetlights flickered as she adjusted her bag and took in the familiar surroundings. The streets were quiet, and the few passer-by kept their distance. Maria felt a sense of calm, a momentary escape from hospital chaos. But as she rounded the corner, the silence was pierced by the rumble of police cars. Two officers emerged, their expressions unreadable, eyes locked on her. They called her name, their tone formal but sharp. Maria froze. She had no idea that this routine stop would transform her ordinary evening into a nightmare and reveal the raw, unfiltered face of racial injustice. The officers didn't offer explanations. Before Maria could respond, they grabbed her arms and placed her in handcuffs, the metal biting into her skin. She asked questions, polite, controlled, but they remained silent, their faces impassive, almost rehearsed. Her mind raced. Had she done something wrong? Was there a misunderstanding? She couldn't tell if it was a minor procedural check or something far more sinister. A crowd had started gathering at a distance, some watching with curiosity, others with unease. Maria's fear grew as the officers herded her toward the hotel pool behind a gated courtyard. She struggled, pleading, trying to explain that she hadn't committed any crime. Her words seemed to bounce off an invisible wall. Her humanity appeared irrelevant. The moment her feet touched the edge of the pool, panic gripped her. One officer shoved her forward and the water swallowed her. The cold hit like a shockwave, sapping her strength. She flailed, gasping, fighting the humiliation of being thrown into a pool in handcuffs. Laughter echoed from one corner, though she couldn't tell if it was mockery or disbelief. As she clambered out, drenched and trembling, whispers began circulating. There were cameras everywhere. Witnesses with phones recorded every motion, every cruel gesture. The injustice, once hidden behind authority, was now on full display. Maria's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the dawning realization that the world could see the truth. She wasn't powerless. Minutes later, news broke that a warrant had been issued for the officer's arrest. The very system that had permitted their abuse was now forced to confront it. It was a shocking reversal, a moment of vindication that seemed almost surreal. The same hands that had inflicted humiliation now faced accountability. Maria, exhausted and shaken, realized that her ordeal would ripple far beyond herself. Her story, caught on camera, had struck a nerve. The intensity of the moment reached its peak as Maria stood shivering at the edge of the pool, water dripping from her hair, her hands still cuffed. The officers glared, disbelief mingling with anger at their own loss of control. She had never felt so small, so exposed, yet within that vulnerability a spark of defiance ignited. Every second stretched into eternity, the sound of her own ragged breathing, the murmurs of onlookers, the click of cameras capturing what should never have happened. Then the news arrived. The warrant. Their names, their faces were now officially marked by the system they had thought untouchable. The officers' expressions shifted, a flicker of fear replacing arrogance. In that instant, Maria felt a complex surge of emotions: relief, exhaustion, rage, and the undeniable power of truth being seen. The nightmare was not over, but a new chapter had begun. One where injustice would not go unnoticed. One where a single act of cruelty could catalyze accountability. Maria walked home that night soaked, exhausted, but not broken. The memory of humiliation lingered, a raw reminder of how quickly the world could turn against someone because of the color of their skin. Yet the warrant against the officers offered hope. A small but undeniable validation that courage and witness could make a difference. Her story spread across social media, stirring outrage, reflection, and conversation. It wasn't just her experience. It represented countless others who had faced unchecked abuse, systemic prejudice, and the harsh indifference of those in power. Maria's ordeal became a rallying cry, a reminder that injustice thrives in silence but can be challenged when truth is revealed. She knew there would still be battles ahead. Still, that evening left a mark. The courage to speak, the importance of witnesses, and the undeniable fact that accountability could prevail. The question remains: how many more stories like hers are waiting to be told? How long will it take for society to truly learn to protect everyone, not just some? Share your thoughts below. Which city and country are you watching from? How would you act if this happened to someone you loved? Take care.